Hey, good Saturday and welcome to The Deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark. It is Saturday, August 22nd, 2020. Can't believe it. Another month is almost gone. We've been here since March. This all started because we wanted to provide some context around the COVID-19 pandemic, and now it's turned into weekly us talking about everything in the news, and we're fortunate to always have good people to help us talk about what's going on and dissect what's going on. And this week we got two of our regulars in, Val Atkinson and Dr. Cheryl Catchings. And Val and Cheryl, welcome back to The Deal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Both of you, when we started this back in March, Val, like I said, we didn't know where this was going to go. And I think what it's leading us to is to the election. And we have a good reason to continue to do this and talk to the folks and bring them, I think better news than the news gives them. Val, your role as a college professor, one of the classes you used to teach was media politics. And I have a problem with the way things are being covered right now. And that's a little bit broad, but we've talked about this before. I do want to talk about the Democratic National Convention and how it had to go online and become virtual and something different. And that probably changed the way that was covered. But can you talk to me real quick, and put on your professor hat real quick, about how the battle for the White House is being covered right now? What's the problem with it as you see it? Because I know we've talked about what we don't like about it.
Well, one of the first things that I did when I was in the classroom, Ed, was make sure that my students understood how money was made in the media profession, and that most media outlets and organizations were not in business for the fun of it or just because they wanted to bring news. They were in it for the economic side of things. They wanted to make money. And so we began talking about Nielsen ratings and Arbitron ratings for television and for radio, and how that translates into cash. That the higher your rating, the more you get to charge for advertisements by the second or by the minute or whatever it is. And dealing with Nielsen ratings, because that's the ratings that governs television. It's based on drama. They've been led to believe that the more drama you have, the more contentious your conversations are, it produces higher ratings. And that's what what I call faceless producers in the background want. We see the results of the faceless producers when they're whispering in the ear of the talking head. They're telling them to go on to this subject, or that's enough of this, or bring that up, or ask him the other. And when they are controlling the narrative, the direction and the pace of the narrative. And because they want drama, they want ratings, they want excitement, because their job is to bring in as much money for that company as they can. So what they want is viewers to go away saying, did you hear about the X or the Y? I saw that on MSNBC or CNN, and it was about some craziness going on. But the real issues they were trying to get through to people about how to vote or the electoral college or whatever, it goes missing, okay? And the media doesn't care about that, because the media is not going to give anybody a test after it's over to find out how much you know about what happened. They want to know, how exciting was my newscast? Did you go away calling your friend saying, hey, have you heard about X or Y? And they are controlling us by determining what we view, how long we view, what depth we go into when we take a look at what they're feeding us. And it's a tough job on people like you and I, Ed, because we have to sift through all of that and still bring people the real news, bring people the things that are going to make a positive impact on their lives, things they need to know to get through, and not just to make them happy, mad, sad, whatever, and go on to the next point so somebody can get higher ratings. So yeah, I made sure students understand that that's what's going on with your media. And now you can look at it from a different lens, and you know why they're giving you what they're giving you and how they're asking you to behave so they can make more money.
Yeah, those are all good points. And that's a good place to start. And I want to turn to Dr. Catchings. I know we talked about the convention, the Democratic convention that just occurred. And it obviously was very different than in the past. They had to do it all on Zoom and do it a different way. What was your thought about how they were able to put that together? To me, I thought it was more effective than the old style, a room full of people, clapping every time somebody said something. You were able to actually hear people talk, and then you saw people like Michelle Obama and Barack Obama show up. What was your assessment of the convention and the way they did it?
I think that it was very well crafted and structured. You could tell that there was a lot of time spent on every piece, even the way that they were choreographed, if you will, and who came in what order. I think that a lot of people actually forget that, it was President Obama, on his campaign trail that actually started, the little segments of, well, let me talk about Susie, Sally, and what happened in her family. And I met Joe Schmo on the corner, and at the gas station, he said, all of those intimate personal stories was the technique that Obama used. And now it's like everybody uses it. And so when we're looking at the stories and making it personal, it makes a really big difference. This is the new venue, because I can't tell you how many meetings and conventions that I've actually been to that would have been the traditional way, physical. And now that we're having physical distancing, it is affecting every piece of everyone's life. I thought that the convention was wonderful. And because they did not have all of the time to pan the whole arena and all of the standing ovation and clapping, they probably got a lot more content in. I appreciated it. I do think that there were a couple places where they probably should have added in the fake clap. When Biden and Kamala finished theirs, I think at that point they should have had something that they could show, or some clapping in the background or something. But I thought that it went very well. I was really pleased and thought that it was well done. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this next week with the Republicans trying to copy and outdo. But for the most part in the community, I heard from people all over the country that I got to get on and watch the convention. I got to watch the convention. I got to see this person. I got to see that person. So I think that for the Democrats, it was a win.
Yeah, Val. Same question to you. What was your assessment? In an extension on that is, we saw some Republicans show up and speak. John Kasich, the former governor of Ohio, spoke. There were just a lot of different voices, a lot of different faces there. And then an extension of that is, what do you think the Republicans are going to do? Can they top that? And, are they just going to do a lot of flag waving?
Well, one of the more important things when you're designing speeches for people running for elective office is first to determine your audience. To whom are you speaking? That's critically important. And the second is the message, which determines how you would have them to behave or speak or think after you speak. That's what's called hitting a home run. You identify the audience, you get your message together, and they ingest it properly, and it changes or validates the way they think or the way they behave. And that's what I think the Democrats did a great job of. It was not, I'm going ahead of myself here when I say it was not about the business of keeping a base tethered to your ideas and your thoughts. When I saw John Kasich up there, that was about the business of going out, telling moderate Republicans and independents that this guy in the White House now doesn't know what he's doing. Mm-hmm. We need to replace it. And it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or independent or Democrat, we need to get this done. That's a strong message. It's not a message that I'm going to get you emotionally involved and get you mad, so mad that you're going to run down to the poll and register today, or make it seem as though you're doing the right thing to save the whole country. It was a message of practicality. And the same thing with most of the other speakers for the DNC. You had people talking about the environment, people talking about healthcare, people talking about jobs, critical things that people, ordinary people, want to hear. The message was not about let's raise the level of excitement so we can get people emotionally involved that they cannot stay away from the poll. This is not about that. And I'm pleased that the Democrats took the position that they took. It wasn't about trying to beat the drums in a way that everybody says, oh man, I'm going out tomorrow. Boy, I didn't know Donald Trump had done this, and I'm going to do this now. Did you see that? No, because that level of anger or discontent is waning, and it only lasts for a few hours or a day or so at the most. Right. But if you appeal to their logic and their concern and their self-interest, that lasts for a long time through November 3rd.
Yeah. So, Dr. Well, let me remind the folks you're watching The Deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark, and as always, Dr. Val Atkinson is in, and Dr. Cheryl Catchings, and we want to make sure that we give people opportunity to participate with us too. And I fail to do this a lot of times. Make sure you send us an email. You can always email me at ed@thedealwithedclark.com. And we'll let Dr. Catchings and Val give their information before we leave today, because we want to hear back from you, get feedback on the program. I get stuff from time to time, topics you want us to cover and those kind of things. So you're watching The Deal, and I want to turn to Dr. Catchings. The Obama showed up at the Democratic convention, and Michelle led off the first night. And did a really good job. And of course, Donald Trump criticized her, but that's a whole other thing. President Obama showed up though, and presidents show up, but his words were pretty strong about Donald Trump, which is not typical, right? Presidents usually don't criticize another sitting president. But this is a critical time, and Donald Trump's a different president. What do you think about the Obama's role in is going to be going forward, and how important is it that the Obamas are taking an active, role in the election?
Again, I think that the whole thing was strategic, and as hard as we know that it has been for the Obamas or all the former presidents to get involved. I think that it was critical that at this point, now that we're down to the wire, the official formal nomination and acceptance has happened. And now if you're going to get in, now is the time. In the past, at both conventions, they have had former presidents come on and do the wave and the whole, clap and just the nice, good, positive little speech about the party. But I think that what Obama did was what needed to be heard. A lot of people still look back to, when he was the sitting president, and Trump himself is the one that has continued to bring up the Obamas during his entire 3.5 years of being in office. So I think it was fitting for him to come on board and finally say something. What struck out to me, everybody knows that he has this phenomenal background in law, and that, he focuses in on constitutional law. So I thought it was just fitting, even where he chose to deliver his speech from. I thought that was pretty powerful, because there was no way that you could miss the significance of that. But what he said needed to be said. We still, all this time, have heard people, you both have received different people in the village talking about, we still love the Obamas, where they at, he's leaving, can he come back as the VP? People are still looking for that leadership, that word. So I thought it was wonderful that he came out, as they led up. I don't know if you all remember this, but I remember it so well. The day that Obamas left the White House, they have that always traditional with the former and the new administration standing on the steps, and you say bye, and they get out the car, give the gift, and the whole 9 yards. If anybody can ever go back and see that footage and the look on Michelle Obama's face, because you could see she was trying to rise above, right, her words, and reach out to Melania, and they were trying their best, and the Trumps at that time were feeling like, we don't need y'all, get on out of here, whatever. And so she just gave up. You could see through that whole short amount of time they were together, she was like, okay, whatever, let's just make it through this. But shortly after that, people were asking her questions about it, and she said, this man has put my family in jeopardy. He put my family in jeopardy because of the things that he has done. My daughters are in jeopardy. This whole birthing thing has put my husband. This is not about the presidency. This is about my family. And I think that had a lot to do with how they feel, what has happened in these last 3.5 years. From their viewpoint, they have had to sit and listen to Trump blame them for everything that has gone wrong. And they held their peace all this time. And so I think, keep it cool. Don't come down to that level. Don't have that conversation at that point. But I think the timing of the convention, we have 70 something days until the election. And I thought that call to arms was perfect timing for both of them, as well as the Republicans that came forward and said, enough is enough. I was raised a Republican. This is how I feel. However, in this case, and they may go back and be Republicans later on, but I thought that took a lot of courage for them to finally be vocal enough to actually come be recorded and speak to their supporters and say, hey, y'all, this is not about being a Republican. I'm a Republican too. I've run for president. However, now is the time to look at the democracy and humanity of our nation, what is happening. And I'm telling you, I was pleased with the whole convention, except for the happened.
Yeah, that all good points. And Val, to wrap up this segment, talk to me about Obama's role in this. What do you see him doing? And he's been speaking very forcefully over the last few weeks, and I think he's going to play an integral role. But what's your assessment of that?
I think Obama is going to play the role of the silent person who everyone goes to for the last final advice. He's going to be the advice giver. Biden and everyone else below him are going to know that they can go to Obama and say, this is our tentative plan. What do you think? We're thinking about doing X or Y. What are your feelings on that? And it's not that Obama has to give his blessings, but I think going forward, the whole Democratic Party will feel better if they know that the icon of the party has been consulted and he thinks that this is a good direction and a good pace. So I think he'll be right in the middle of every strategy, every tactic that the Democratic Party comes up with, and rightfully so. Yeah,
good points. Well, that's a good place for us to take a break. Everybody stay with us. We'll be right back. And when we come back, I want to turn to the Republicans. We've seen the list of their speakers. I'm not all that excited. Maybe some people are excited about Scott Baio. I'm just not. But we want to give them give our feedback on what the Republicans are going to do in their convention coming up this week. So stay right there. We'll be right back in a little bit. You're watching The Deal with Ed Clark.
mentioned, he will be giving his acceptance speech Thursday night from the White House itself. That is federal property, of course. And there are also concerns about so much of the activity happening in close proximity to his own hotel, the Trump Hotel.
And welcome back to The Deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark, and we are talking about all things politics today, and we'll get to some other topics as well. But we left talking about the Democratic National Convention. I promised when we came back, we got in with us today, Val Atkinson, our resident political science expert and know-it-all, and Dr. Cheryl Catchings, psychologist, to try to make sense of why everybody's so crazy nowadays, but also to talk about what's going on. You know, guys, when we left, we were saying Obama was going to have a role because he's a strong figure, right? There's no strong figure that I see on the Republican side. And I'll start with you, Val, on this. What do you anticipate from this Republican convention? We were talking about the list of speakers that are supposed to be there. It's not that exciting. You know, Scott Baio, Nikki Haley, Joni Ernst from Iowa, Jared Kushner, Mitch McConnell, Mike Pence, Melania Trump. Maybe she'll read Michelle Obama's speech like she did the last time. What do you think the Republicans can do in their convention, one, to even get close to what the Democrats have done, or do they even have to, or will they even attempt to?
I think what will happen, maybe unintentionally, is that they will reveal their strategy going forward for the 2020 election. They cannot compete with the Democratic Party for broadening the tent or bringing in new people to be a part of their program. So what they're going to do here, and I think it'll be very evident, is they want to throw more red meat to their base. Mm-hmm. They want to keep their base tethered to the strategy, the plan, whatever that happens to be. So you're going to see a lot of those speeches by the people that you just enumerated that are going to tell people how great it is to be a Republican. Look at all the things we did, and these are the things we're going to do. And oh, by the way, none of them will allow the truth to get in the way of what they have to say. They just want to make a point. And much of what they say won't be the truth, but they'll be making these points at any rate. I think it's going to be a convention of half-truths, outright lies, distortions, deceptions, you can name it. But at the end of the day, their base will be satisfied that, yes, I'm going to vote. Yes, I love Donald Trump. No, we are not racist. No, we are not bigots, and we don't lie. And that's how they want to be seen. And they'll do a good job of convincing themselves that that's reality, when most of us will know that it's not.
Right. Well, in the end, I guess it doesn't matter what happens at the conventions or anything like that. It still matters what happens at the polls, right? And I want to switch gears to voting itself. And we've been talking about this a lot over the last few weeks. People are concerned because now the president, Dr. Catchings, the president says there should be police at the polls. And we already know what he's tried to do at the Postal Service. And we know that he's skeptical that any outcome other than him winning is going to be valid, right? He's thrown out delaying the vote altogether, which he can't do. I mean, all of this is a setup for people to think about that this is not real and it's not valid. In my piece this week on the deal with Ed Clark, I wrote about the constant gaslighting that the president does. He gets us to think we're the crazy ones, that he knows all, and that he's convinced us to believe that there is a problem with voting. And we've talked about this, off mic, about let's just go about our business of getting people to the polls, doing our part or whatever. How are you talking about it with the people that you know and your friends about, just voting, ignoring all the, whatever is going on in the conversations out in the world and what the president's saying from the podium about just voting? period?
Well, a couple of things. I do want to make a quick comment on the Republican convention, because I think that they're scared. I think that they have a real concern to be scared, which is why that administration is doing all that they can, and all of the tactics at the power of his pen and executive order. I think that they're rebounding and, one of those situations, and they are reacting to the Democratic convention. The difference in the two for me is that the Democratic convention talked about what the issues are, and they gave some real tangible examples of where we need to go, and people keep your focus, which is to get out there and vote. The Republicans, like Val said, they're going to spend their time trying to convince everyone, yeah, we're right. We're the righteous group. And so I don't think that they're going to get much traction outside of just the fact of they're just doing it. And that's really what people in the community are saying, that, if you're Republican and you're part of the base, they're going through it, it's rote, but they're not going to gain or sway any people. I don't think that they're going to have any Democrats who say, well, now I believe in Trump and now I'm going to switch parties and vote Republican. That's not going to happen. And so I think that we cannot lose our focus. The main thing in the community and in the village is to get people to understand this is the strategy. We went through all of this. Now we've got all of the ammunition that we need. We've heard from Obama. We've heard from the Clintons. We cannot downplay what Hillary Clinton said. We can win the popular vote and still lose. Learn from her lesson. I mean, people are going from Michelle to Obama to Biden and Kamala's speech, but Hillary's speech said a lot. And I hope a lot of people heard what she was trying to say, in their political positive speak. Y'all get out there and vote. So I think that we need to get down to that strategy that, all the social action community groups need to be now trying to look at. If we know that they're going to try to have police, law enforcement at the polls, that really is a setup for arguments and discussions to happen, and for people to be arrested literally while they're standing in line without a mask at, 4.5 feet away from the next person. Somebody's hungry, a health issue, I left line, now you coming back and cutting. All the things that could happen at the concert are going to happen at the poll. And so I think people need to really be encouraged to vote early, whether you're going to do mail-in vote, absentee voting, get the strategies of the way that they did it back then. There was not a whole big discussion about Democrat, Divine Nine, and you're in this group and that group. People were saying, be at the church at 10 o'clock. Right? We're going to take you. And now in this new strategy, the pivot should be, how can we help the people in the village get those mail-in votes? How go on the computer, folks that are tech savvy, fill out that paperwork, and either be the proxy to go and pick up that ballot in whatever state it is in, order those mail-in ballots for you, your cousin Pete, and all the rest of them, and make sure that if there is an election ballot drop-off box, that you go ahead and get your vote in there ASAP. Yeah. We have to utilize the early voting and the strategies that we still have some control over. We can't control what they're going to do, but we can control what we need to do. And now that the gauntlet has been put down, everybody is comfortable, the Obamas are there. They made that clear on both sides. He keeps talking about Obama, so Obama has said get out and vote. So now we got to look at the strategy. How do we do that safely?
Val, Cheryl brings up a lot of good points, but I think one of the things that I heard here is we can account for what's going to happen. They're going to throw shit at the wall to see what sticks, to try to do anything to intimidate people from going. Trump constantly has been talking about the Postal Service not being able to deliver, when we know that 1 day's worth of mail is 450 some million pieces. There's only 190 million people that vote or that could vote. Everybody's not going to vote by mail. It's not a national election. Your ballots go to a county, board of election. Is this Trump trying to take advantage of the fact that people don't know civics well enough, that your county board of election is where your ballot's going to go, that we've been doing mail-in voting forever, that there's not just, I don't know. I mean, talk to me about what Trump's strategy is of confusing people about how the voting process actually works.
Well, he's doing a good job at that. And unfortunately, we are helping him. And I say unfortunately, because the more we talk about it without a solution, and I want to make this clear, talking about it with the solution is different than just talking about it and leaving the listener to come up to their own devices as to what to do about it. That's when you evoke confusion and problems, because that'll happen when you talk about a crisis and, oh, this may happen and that may happen, and you don't tell them what to do about it. They become scared and fearful, and they should. So
Right.
It's okay to warn people about what's going on, but tell them what to do. Tell them how to deal with that. And one of the things I like to say, first of all, to try to give them facts. Trump does not have the executive authority privilege to send sheriffs and local police officers to polls. That is a function of the municipality in terms of the city, the county, or the state to do that. He can't send fellow troops there. That can't happen without him declaring an emergency. And there are gazillion precincts around the country, and we don't have enough troops to man them all. Don't worry about that. Right. There are people at the poll that are poll watchers. If you're one of those people who have to stand in line, make sure the first thing you do, as is advised of you when you go to a restaurant or theater, locate the exit points when you're at a restaurant or theater. In this case, when you stand in line, locate the poll watchers, locate the people that are there. So if you have problems, you know where they are, you know who to go see. Talk to people in front of you and behind you so that you know if you have to leave the line, you can come back in without making somebody thinking you're cutting the line. Mm-hmm. Dress appropriately, because if it rains or have some other type of inclement weather, you don't want to have to seek shelter somewhere or get out of the line. Have things that you need to snack on or whatever. But most importantly, make sure you have all of the documentation that people have been telling you in your state that you need to vote. Make sure that you have checked with your board of elections at the county or the state level days and weeks before the election to make sure your status is still active. And if it's not, contact the proper people and find out why has your status changed and why did they take you off the roll? And then you'll have some time to do something about it. On November the 3rd is the wrong time to find out that you are inactive. You can't do anything about it. So those are the kinds of things that I think we can do to arm our people. We don't want to just scare them. We want to arm them with the things they need to be effective and successful in this electoral process. So that's my gospel message, is let those of us who have the facts, and I count myself in that, we talk about that, and used to talk about that in the classroom at all times. We know what's going on, and you can attest to the fact, Ed, you and I talk about this on our other show, Connections, every time we're on. Voter education and participation. And those of you who know something about it, involved in the community, as Cheryl was saying, the Divine Nine or some other groups like that, make sure we're doing our level best to arm our people, make sure they understand, make sure they know what to do in case of emergency, because unfortunately, the Republicans are not going to share their battle plan with us. They're not going to tell us beforehand what they're going to do. We need to be prepared. It's just like a war. If you're in the military, the enemy is not going to tell you what they're going to do. You've got to come up with your own plans and contingency plans based on what they might do. And then some plans to even put them on the defensive. This is war, and this is the way you got to treat it. And we've got to come off of this, what I call singular methodology of war, where the only thing we are doing is trying to excite our base and telling them how bad it is and giving them examples of this, that, and the other, and then leaving it up to them to do something about it. It's not a winning strategy, folks. It's not a winning strategy.
I hear you, Val. I want to remind the folks you're watching The Deal or listening to it if you're listening to the podcast version, but this is The Deal with Ed Clark and Val Atkinson. You're just hearing him, former professor at North Carolina Central University in media politics and political science, and Dr. Cheryl Catchings. She's a psychologist. And you know, we're just trying to make sense of the world and make sure that people are aware of what voting, how important voting is and how to vote. And it's amazing that even at this time, as many times as we've had watershed elections, that we still have to remind people about registering and what the process is. But I think over time, at least the Republicans in that group have wanted to try to fool people into believing that they can control everything by being the minority. And what I mean by that is, if you look across the country, Republicans don't make up the majority of people, Dr. Catchings, but they've been able to snatch control in these state legislatures. And then in the state legislature, they redraw the districts. And then they make sure that Republicans win. And then they intimidate people and keep them from voting and going to the polls. And it's a vicious cycle, right? And now Republicans have been able to insert themselves in just about every state, and then they can have an effect on the election. We know that last time, and you brought this up about Secretary Clinton and what she talked about, she warned people that you can still win the popular vote and lose. And she did. She won by 3 million votes. And you've probably seen these polls that are out that say Joe Biden has a 9-10 point lead nationally or whatever. How do we convince people not to get complacent and say, oh, okay, well, since he's up by 9 points, I don't have to do anything? What's the message that you have for people about that?
My message to them is that we cannot be easily distracted. We have to be laser focused on what the bottom line is, that every vote matters. And we really have to stick to, as we all have said, numerous times, the strategy is to register in your state and then to get that voting process in as soon as possible. We have to stick to that. And so what I would like to see are the different community agencies. If you have computers and, I don't want to say any name and be wrong, but we know that there's some different community-based organizations that have computer labs, and we were teaching young people how to be tech savvy. We've got the reopening of the schools, and every child, has access to a computer, or even in the library. Let's put the strategy together that everybody that needs to register to vote is going to meet at this place at 10 o'clock in the morning. Come on in, have the tech savvy folks there, no matter what age they are. This is where young people can jump in and be able to assist. Go to that state site, make sure that you're active, that you're registered, because you can do the request, the mail-in vote and all of that online and have it shipped directly to your house. And then let's have another session 2 weeks from then or a week from then, fill it out, and then make sure that it gets mailed back in. If we don't see that this is a time that we cannot be intimidated, to me, the difference between back in the day, John Lewis and some of our other civil rights icons, they were used to being oppressed. They were used to all of the tactics. And so they were not intimidated. They were feeling empowered. They had the strategy meetings at the back of the church. I remember sitting in the back of the church as my parents and grandparents were up in front in the meetings with some of these civil rights icons with the strategy of, we're going to do this, we're not going to do that. And I think that that's where we are right now. We need to go back to some of our grassroots strategies and make sure that it's going to happen, that those ballots are in there, and that every vote counts, just like they thought back then. I mean, think about it. This generation is the entitled generation from both sides. I'm not talking about white privilege, but I'm talking about wanting to give your children more than you had. And in some of those instances, there's just not that attitude of gratitude, if you will. And so they've never been intimidated. I think that people were appalled when they saw those young people being gassed in the pepper spray and the rubber bullets on the mall in DC when Trump went to take that photo out. But that opened their eyes. So let's use that strategy, teach them, empower them. Your vote matters. Like it used to be, I'm Black and I'm proud, I'm gonna get out there and vote, I'm gonna walk across the Pettus Bridge. Now you gotta walk across your own community bridge, get that ballot in that box. Every vote.
Every vote does count, and that's a good point for us to take a break. And when we come back, Val's gonna be here and Dr. Cheryl's gonna be here. We're gonna wrap this up in our final segment. I wanna go to talk about COVID-19 because it's still a problem. And so if you guys can stay with us, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk about COVID-19, school openings, and a whole bunch of other stuff. You're watching The Deal with Ed Clark.
I love New York. We love New York.
We've been stuck inside our homes,
while our everyday heroes have been working overtime.
For New York to reopen
and stay open.
We all need to do our part.
And show that we care.
Look, man.
I wear a mask to protect you.
You wear a mask to protect me.
Let's all wear a mask
to stop the spread of coronavirus
and save lives.
When we show up in the mask,
we're showing up for each other.
Show your love for New York.
Because New York loves you.
More than 20 million Americans are out of work, struggling to make ends meet. But Trump says,
today is probably, if you think of it, the greatest comeback in American history.
Trump's botched handling of the coronavirus pandemic cost jobs, and the unemployment rate is still at historic levels. Donald Trump either doesn't know what's going on, or he just doesn't care.
And welcome back to our final segment of The Deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark, joined by Dr. Cheryl Catchings and Val Atkinson. And again, we're trying to save the world this weekend and talking about a lot of things, voting, the DNC, the RNC. But guys, I just looked at the numbers when we went on break. There are 840,000 people dead worldwide, but 180,000 dead in the United States. There are 22 million confirmed diagnoses, but 5.6 million confirmed in the United States. And by all accounts, those numbers in the United States are probably much higher, right? So we're a full 6 months into this, Val. Where are we going with this COVID-19? The president now is doing these daily briefings again, but rarely talks about COVID. What am I missing something again? My piece this week was about this whole gaslighting, where supposedly he's doing coronavirus briefings, but he never talks about coronavirus.
Yeah, in 2016, Ed, Donald Trump spent far, far less money than Hillary Clinton did, because he figured that once he opened his mouth, the news media was going to be there to catch every word. It didn't cost him almost anything to get on Twitter and tweet at 2:30 in the morning. So he ran almost a costless campaign. He's brought that into this cycle here, and he has decided that he'll call a press conference. All of the media must come running, and then he'll use it as a campaign issue. And you came there listening to him talk about COVID-19, and he's talking about bum rushing the protesters in Portland. Mm-hmm. He's talking about how people are committing voter fraud, and why he must do the things he's doing to make things right. And reporters are sitting there with notebooks in hands and pencil, waiting to talk about COVID-19. And he is off on some tangent. But be that as it may, there is a question or two that might get through about COVID-19. And we on the same side of things, it's left up to us to really go ahead and talk about it, because it's critically important. there couldn't have been a more hard-hitting disease or pandemic than COVID-19 to strike us in America, where our culture leaves us more vulnerable. And what I mean by that is that we are a gregarious people. We're an ostentatious people. We love mixing and mingling. And some of us even like showing off, showing out. And those are the things you can't do if you're going to beat COVID. Those are the very things you can't do. And as long as we continue to try to do them because they are part and parcel to our base core identification as a people, it makes it real hard for us to fight it. And then to put another layer on top of that, our economy that we love and we worship is a consumer-driven economy. You can't have really good consumerism if you're at home, regardless of how good Amazon is and FedEx and UPS. It hits the economy and hits it hard, especially small businesses, when people are hunkered down at home and they're quarantined. And they go and have carryout instead of sitting down at a restaurant and tipping the wait person. It has had a devastating effect on our morale, our economy, our culture, and on the thought of who we really are as a people. And it requires that we do some fundamental changing to our core being in order to fight this pandemic. We cannot stay gregarious and we cannot stay ostentatious and fight this disease. And that's why some South Asian countries, some other cultures around the world did much better than we did, because that's not in their basic makeup as a people. When some one person says, everybody wear a mask, they do it. Stay home, they do it. Social distancing, they do it. We can't do that. We want to know, where are the exceptions? Why do I have to stand 6 feet? Why can't I stand 3? Is that okay? Can I wear this type of mask? Do I have to cover both mouth and nose? I want it my way. We are a culture of wanting it our way. And I'm telling you, this is the worst culture to fight something like COVID-19. That's the reason we're where we are, Ed.
Yeah, Dr. Catchings, I just had an image in my head, and I don't know if you saw the video. There was a flight from Las Vegas to Charlotte, North Carolina this week, and a lot of Black folks were on the plane, and a lot of sisters were on the plane. And a fight erupted because one person wouldn't wear a mask. And my first thought was, why are all those colored people on the plane? Was it Soul Plane? Yeah, in the middle of a pandemic, coming from Vegas in the first place. What are we doing? Are we just? I know people are tired of being in the house. I know people want to get back to normal, but we are not in normal times. And you know, the video is what it is. People are going to behave like they're going to behave, but why are we not getting through?
Well, listen, now, first of all, don't mess with no sisters in their hair, you know, when it's coming to off wigs and fussing and fighting. But, you know, I mean, I just have an issue when people keep talking about get back to normal. We're never going to get back to normal. That old life that we remember, you know, and I have to talk to people all the time that have been in some pretty bad situations from, you know, disasters happening across the country. And so I'm always talking to them about, you know, you are going to recover when you move into and accept your new normal. And that's part of what people are kicking and screaming, trying to go backwards into something that is never going to exist. It's not even there anymore. The quicker we get to the new normal, which means, and I say this, you know, a couple people have asked me, you know, on different shows and different, you know, speaking engagements, you need to just go on and you know, sister, like you got your shoe closet, you may as well get your mask closet so you can color coordinate every day with your whatever it is, because the mask is going to be a part of our wardrobe, and we should want it to be for health and safety reasons, to not try to prematurely take it off or go into places. We need to be making sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our family, our individual self, and our community safe. And people are just rebelling because they think they're rebelling against the establishment. That doesn't even make sense. This is a health pandemic, and that's part of why we're having such a problem in this country. I tell you one thing, I never understood what ugly American meant until I was stationed on active duty overseas, and I saw how Americans can act based on other cultures. What Dr. Val said is very true. In other cultures, and they can say what they want to about the Asian culture and community, but when they said put the mask on, they put the mask on. You know, in Australia, New Zealand, all of the other countries, they're following the direction of their leader. And so when it was said, they did it. Now we have so much confusion going on right now. Nobody knows who the leader is, which goes back to what Obama said. Wear your mask, get out there and vote. I mean, Val talked about the economy, and that's very true. But if we reopen based on the economy and we're not following the guidelines from CDC, then your business is going to die, including your customers.
Yeah, and dead people can't buy stuff, is last I checked. So
say again?
I said dead people can't buy stuff the last I checked.
And that has to be the number one focus. You have to be alive, healthy and alive in order to vote. And we cannot allow anything to change that strategy and that focus. All of these other things are gaslighting, they're distractions to keep us from that ballot, to change the administration. Because Joe Biden has already said one of the first things he's going to do is to make sure that we look at this COVID-19 pandemic and the strategies that have been given and not followed to make this nation safe.
Yeah. Well, Val, I want to talk about the economy real quick. Unemployment, the extended unemployment ran out. So most people are living off of $200 a week who are unemployed, which is not enough money anywhere in the United States. I don't know where you could live off of $200 a week and feed your family and pay the kind of rents that are out there. J. Crew, Neiman Marcus, J.C. Penney's, Lord & Taylor. That's just a short list of people that have filed bankruptcy in the last 2 weeks, large retailers. So that means thousands of people who work in those places probably don't have a job anymore. There's all these small local businesses that are closing. And one statistic I saw said that probably 60% of small Black-owned businesses were either gonna close or have already closed. There needs to be another stimulus. Is there going to be one? If you can prognosticate, and what would it look like? Mitch McConnell wants to win his seat back in Kentucky, and he's in a little bit of trouble. And Lindsey Graham wants to win his seat in South Carolina. But will the Republicans actually do another stimulus that may turn some of these numbers around?
My personal opinion, Ed, is that there will be a stimulus, but much less than what the Democrats asked for initially, which was $600 for the added on unemployment insurance payment. The $1,200 may stay the same, $1,200 per person, but the $600 per week, I don't see it as a starter. I think Mitch McConnell and a lot of the other Republicans see that as giving in to the Democrats, and they can't afford to do that right now. And Democrats see that they don't want to be seen, rather, as standing in the way of something, rather than holding firm and nobody getting anything. So I think we're going to see something. Give them a couple of days to work on it. They'll work it out, maybe in the neighborhood of $300-400 instead of $600. But we will see a stimulus package 2.0.
And let me piggyback on that. This morning, if you're watching this on Saturday the 22nd, the House is scheduled to have a vote on money for the Postal Service, $25 billion. And the president's been throwing everything at the Postal Service, saying how bad he hates it and it's a horrible business when it's not a business in the first place. What do you think about what's going on at Postal, Val? Have you been paying attention to this new postmaster who's from North Carolina, actually from Greensboro? Have you paid any attention to that, and what do you think's going on there?
Well, this guy must have wanted to go down in the history books mighty bad, that he would take a post from Donald Trump and do his bidding and be castigated and talked about and thrown off the boat as he is going to be. But at any rate, I think you hit the most important part on the head here. We said that postal service is a service and it's not a business, and you shouldn't be gauging it as a business. People need to know how the postal service has been hamstrung by having to set aside 75% of pensions. No other company does that. No other service or agency has been mandated to do such. So that puts them in a fiscal hole right there. And Donald Trump is great at putting things together for a singular purpose. He understands that he controls the postal department to a degree, and he can do so through his appointed secretary there. And if he can slow down things, he can have an impact on the election, because the only way he can win is through voter suppression of people who probably would vote Democratic. That's the only way he has any chance at all. So all of his strategies leads up to that point. Everything he does, regardless of where it starts, it ends up in voter suppression of the Democratic vote. And this whole business about the postal department is a part of that. Don't be confused about all the other moving parts about this, that, and the other. Is about the one singular thing of making it more difficult for people who normally vote Democratic to cast their votes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right about it. Man, we covered a lot of ground in this hour, Dr. Catchings and Val. I want to thank you guys for coming in and spending another Saturday with us. Over the next few weeks, you'll probably be seeing a lot more of Dr. Catchings and Val, because we need to figure out a way, like you said, Val, to make sure people are getting out to vote, and we're going to be doing segments on information about that, and maybe bringing some people in who could talk specific, nuts and bolts on how to do that. So we're reaching out to people now to see if we can get people on to talk about what it's like in their state, or at least what you should expect when you try to vote. In the meantime, what I've been doing is asking at the end of every show, and I'll start with you this time, Dr. Catchings. Tell me something good and positive that I need to be looking forward to. There's so much negativity in the world. There's so much bad stuff in the world. Why should I be hopeful this week?
I think that we should be hopeful this week because the Democratic convention was wonderful. I'm looking forward to seeing the follow through from the young folks and from the techies out in the community.
That's good. Yeah, and Val, so why should I be hopeful this week?
Well, I'm going to combine two things. I like to talk about book reviews. So I'm going to say you should be hopeful because Isabel Wilkerson has put out her book, Caste, The Origin of Our Discontents. It is a marvelous book. I recommend it to all. Please read it. It's about the misnomering of our racial issues here in America. It's not about racism. It's about the caste system, the unspoken of caste system in America. Please read her book. She's a prolific writer. I couldn't put it down. That's called Caste, The Origin of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson.
Yep, and I just ordered it last night, Val. So on your recommendation, so I should be reading it in a few hours. In addition to that, if you're watching today on Saturday, August 22nd, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I'm on with some guy named Val Atkinson on Connections on WFXC and WFXK in the Raleigh-Durham market, but you can hear it all the way in Southern Virginia. You can hear us all the way down to the South Carolina line, all over Eastern North Carolina on WFXC and WFXK. And we're going to be talking to some judges or people who are running for judge tomorrow, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that, Val?
Yeah, we have Gray Starr, who is running for the North Carolina Appellate Court in North Carolina. They are statewide races for the Court of Appeals and the North Carolina Supreme Court. And we have Gray Stars and Reuben Young, two people running for seats on the Court of Appeals in North Carolina. Our Court of Appeals seats 15 people, and they all are elected for 6 to 8 year terms. And they are running for election in seats 6 and 7. And we had them to talk about how they felt about the whole voting process, because we try to keep them case neutral. They can't talk about things that if it's a case pending, that they have to make a move on, or maybe a case coming up. Yeah. So they talk about the voting process, what made them interested in judgeships, and why they're running for the North Carolina Court of Appeals. So we'll have both of them on tomorrow.
Yeah, that's at 8 a.m. If you're up tomorrow morning, please listen to that. If you're not in North Carolina, you can listen to it too on foxync.com. It's streamed live there, and you get to hear Val talk again. So I know you're all looking forward to that. Look, everybody, thanks again for watching. Dr. Catchings, we'll see you again. And Val, I'll see you tomorrow on Connections. In the meantime, go out and do something good for somebody this week, and we'll see you next Saturday on The Deal. Thanks for watching.
Right now, 1 in 5 eligible people in this country are not even registered to vote. And I know it's not because people don't care. We all care. The only way to make change in this country is to get out and vote for the change you're looking for. What if this year we actually did that? What if this year every eligible American decided to step up and be a voter? What can actually happen when we all vote? Imagine the kind of leaders we can elect.
Leaders who are committed to creating a better world for my girls.
When we all vote,
we have the power to shape the future.
My father was deported when I was 8 years old. If you can't vote, you should vote. Where we all vote, we translate our dreams into change.
Register to vote today, not tomorrow, not the next day, but today.
That means all of us.
When we all vote, that's how change happens in America. I love you all so much. Let's get it done.
Thank you.